The Orlando Magic have traded their second round pick. There's no surprise. We'll break down the deal and what it means for the Magic as we turn our attention to free agency. It's time for Locked On Magic.
You are Locked On Magic, your daily Orlando Magic podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And you are indeed Locked On Magic. Today is June 27th. It will be June 28th, 2024. My name is Philip Rosenreich. I'm the senior writer over at OrlandoMagicDaily.com. You can, of course, follow me on Twitter at PhilipRR_OND. On today's episode of Locked On Magic, perhaps no surprise, the Orlando Magic traded their second round pick on the second day of the NBA draft. We'll break down what that is, the assets the Magic have moving forward, and what it means for the roster today. We'll break down the depth chart and look ahead to free agency, why this is an important summer to spend. We'll get to all that coming up here in just a moment. But first, we want to thank you again for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day, no matter when you listen to us, whether it's first thing in the morning, whether it's right when we upload. We truly appreciate you making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. Remember, there's a great Locked On podcast covering every single team in the NBA. Just search for Locked On and the team you're looking for, the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Also, let's get this off the bat, right off the top of the show. Do not forget that Sunday at 5:45 p.m. Eastern Time, we will be going live on YouTube. It will only be on YouTube. I'm not doing a Twitter Spaces this time. YouTube live free agency show will react to all the free agent goings-ons as they happen. We're expecting the Magic to be very active. Maybe it won't be immediate. Maybe it will be, but I'll take your questions on the Orlando Magic and so much more. Again, that'll be Sunday night, 5:45 p.m. Eastern Time. We'll start 15 minutes before the official starting gun goes off for free agency, and we'll go live until we feel like there's not much else to do. Definitely check in there. And again, if you're audio only, or if you tend to listen to the the podcast or follow me only on Twitter, that will be YouTube only. I need to have my phone handy so I can follow along what's going on and update more constantly than I can on my desktop and following all that stuff. So we will be YouTube only. So if you want to join the show or submit questions, that'll be the way to do that. Again, 5:45 p.m. on Sunday. Because Sunday is now the next thing. We are done with the draft. It was a fairly quiet draft for the Orlando Magic. Some of us thought that the Magic might make some trades. Eventually, trades just did not happen. Like I explained on Wednesday's episode before the draft, trades are going to be very tough for the Magic with the assets that they have. They need to kind of recover some assets a little bit and build up some assets a little bit if they want to get into the trade market. Another reason it's important to spend this summer. We'll get to that later on in the show. They picked Tristan da Silva, a player that we had identified very early on in the draft process as someone that really screams, I am an Orlando Magic player. Come draft me. I did not think he would be available at the end of the day because he's an Orlando Magic player. Come draft me. Maybe that's my bias. But the Magic are very, very happy to have him in the fold. They love his playmaking. They love his basketball IQ. They love his versatility. They love his size. They love his shooting. Checked off all the boxes the Magic have. He will be introduced officially to the media here in Orlando on Friday. We'll probably recap that and also have a conversation with the host of Locked On Buffs next week. We're going to get right into free agency. Free agency is like front of mind right now for us here on the show. And of course, next week, a holiday week, my birthday week as well. So we will have shows. We will have shows. There will be things going on. Do not worry. We'll be on top of everything. So we came into Thursday's second round, not sure what to expect. Certainly the Magic have three two-way spots they need to fill. Admiral Schofield has aged out of being a two-way player. Kevon Harris is coming off the end of his second year of a two-way contract. Trevelin Queen only signed a one-year two-way contract. I suspect Queen may be back. It wouldn't surprise me if they tried to upgrade Mac McClung to a two-way contract, but the Magic have always been very loose with how they use two-way contracts. Maybe there was a player in this draft that they would go through. And we went through a couple interesting players that could have been available, but look, it was very clear early on that the Magic were going to do what they always do with their second round pick. I hate to say it. I know everyone said, don't worry about the second round. The Magic are just going to trade it anyway. Jeff Weltman has indeed traded 5 of the 8 second round picks he has held on draft night. The Magic still have, I think it's 9 first round picks and 13 or 14 second round picks from now until 2032. They have a big draft stash whenever they want to use it. But the Magic ultimately traded their second round pick. So a very uneventful day. Here's the deal the Magic made. You'll see this it come up on the screen here. Oh no, I'm not supposed to be there. Where am I? Never mind. Never mind. I put my thing in the wrong pocket here. Let me fix that if you don't mind me not being prepared here. There it is. So the Magic made a deal. It's a relatively minor deal. It doesn't really change a whole lot. And there it is on the screen now on YouTube. The Magic drafted Antonio Reeves with the number 47 pick from Kentucky. They traded him to the New Orleans Pelicans for the unprotected right to swap second round picks in 2030 and 2031. The Magic are not getting any additional draft picks. They just have the option and the ability to improve their draft position in 2 straight drafts 5 years from now, 6 and 7 years from now, actually. So not a huge deal here, not anything earth shattering. Look, when you look at the draft, you're looking at the 47th pick, back end of the draft. It seems more than ever now. And this, I think, is one of the reasons why the NBA ultimately decided to go to a 2-night draft. A lot of the second round is jockeying by agents. A lot of the second round is agents trying to place their clients in advantageous situations and put their clients in places where they will be able to play. A lot of teams, knowing that maybe they don't have the roster space or don't have that ability, will try and entice players to, hey, come play with us. We can give you a 2-way contract. There's some reporting suggesting that the Spurs were offering 2-way contracts at the 35th pick, which was the highest that had ever happened. Some of that just might be the depth of the talent in this draft really dropped. I mean, yes, Kyle Filipowski, Johnny Furphy were still available. Tyler Kolek was a solid player. There are going to be solid players. I know I had AJ Mitchell on my list. I like Jamel Sheed, even though he's a little on the small side for what the Magic are looking for. There are solid players to be had in the second round. There's going to be 2, maybe 3 second round players who carve out really nice careers as bench players. That's just the reality of how the second round goes. But they're throwing darts a little bit. And at this juncture, it just didn't seem like there wasn't like that runaway, like, oh, the Magic need to go get this guy. Maybe you're an Ulrich Chomchi fan. Maybe you're not. But to me, today, what happened during the second round is a continuation of what we kind of feel is happening with this team and what we kind of feel was happening after the first round. The Orlando Magic are ready to win. Like, they're not, yes, they're still a development outfit. They want their young players to get better, but they're ready to win. They want to win. They want players who are going to help them win basketball games and help them win immediately. And so that means 2 things. One, that means if you're an agent with a second round prospect, you're looking at the Magic roster and all the young players they have who are fighting for attention. The young players the Magic are clearly going to try and emphasize. I am kind of like, my head is spinning with how much the Magic are trying to tell us that Jet Howard's going to be really good this year. I don't know whether we should believe it or not. We're going to find out in Vegas in a couple weeks here. We will see if, the Magic, Jet Howard's essentially a rookie. Like, they already have a rookie. So if you're complaining like, oh, why didn't the Magic add another second round pick? Well, they're going to be developing not only Tristan Da Silva, who should be more ready to play as a 23-year-old senior coming out of Colorado. They're going to be developing Jet Howard. They've got 2 rookies on the roster already. And then Anthony Black on top of that. He played a little bit, but again, was out of the rotation late. So if you're an agent trying to place your client in the second round, the Magic just aren't an attractive team. Maybe that 2-way contract spot would be nice, but tell me who should get that 2-way contract. I like Melvin Aginsa. I wouldn't have mind going after him. Bobby Clinton, I think, was probably a little too high level. Tyler Smith is interesting, but can't shoot. They're just, it didn't seem like everything aligned. We're talking about this really in the bigger context. The Magic are running down 2 tracks here. The Magic have the draft track where they're trying to develop and grow players. And they have this free agency track where they're trying to add the right veterans to their mix to ultimately make this team better, to help them cement what they gained this past season and really cement and grow from what they gained this past season. To me, that is a formula that the second round was just not going to be a place where the Magic could get someone good. And I looking at who was drafted in the second round, and I'm going to pull up the draft order here in a sec. Apologies for not being super ready. Looking at who went after the Magic picked Antonio Reeves, like, you can make an argument for Harrison Ingram. You can make an argument for Tristan Newton. I liked Melvin Aginsa. I like Cam Spencer. Kevin McCullough and Ulrich Chomsky, are two different ends of the spectrum, but they're interesting players. But none of those guys are going to play. Kevin McCullough is a senior. He's someone that should be able to contribute pretty quickly. But what is his NBA skill? Cam Spencer can shoot the ball. I would have liked to have taken a chance on Cam Spencer, or at least see if he can get him on a two-way deal. I don't know what his deal is with Detroit and what ended and where he ended up going. Ulrich Chomsky is just a super raw center from the NBA Africa Academy. So at the end of the day, what the Magic did here was prepare for their offseason. Because when you look at their depth chart, yes, there are 4 empty roster spots still to fill. If you look at their depth chart, it tells you where the Magic need to go, and it tells you the Magic need ready-made players to get there. Let's go over that depth chart now that the draft is done and break down where the Magic go next. We're going to get to that coming up here in just a moment. But first, it's time for a quick word from our friends over at Gametime. It is a big weekend here in Central Florida. We have Copa America, and I know for my U.S. men's national team friends, I'm a supporter of the U.S. men's national team. Of course, we don't really want to talk about Copa America today, but if you want to get the bad taste of that loss to Panama out of your mouth, Canada is in town. We get 2 Copa America games coming to us this weekend. So if you want tickets to the big game, whether it's that game, whether it's the other big soccer events, Orlando Pride games, any event going on in the city, Gametime is the place to go, especially for last-minute tickets. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Gametime gives you last-minute deals. You can save up to 60% off buying last-minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and so much more. They have zone deals that allow you to save even more when you choose a section and let Gametime choose the seats. They give you all-in pricing, which allows you to see the total upfront with no surprise fees at checkout. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. We want to thank you for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. If you want the lowdown on the biggest stories in sports, from Major League Baseball to wrapping up the NBA draft, check out the Locked On Sports Today 24/7 streaming channel. It's a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming, just the best local analysis from local experts who know their team best. Stream it 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. So where do we stand now? Like I said, the Magic are working on 2 tracks. That's what Jeff Weltman said. And that's how every offseason is. This isn't new. But this offseason does feel different because the Magic are a team in a position of power. The Magic are a team that, I think everyone around the league is trying to figure out what they're going to do. Like I'm sitting here, I can give you my best guess. But I don't know what ultimately the Magic are going to do this offseason, what the Magic are going to do on June 30th. We will be finding out, just like everyone else. We will all be surprised by what the Magic do, and maybe it won't happen June 30th. Like let's be serious about this. I think the NBA is getting much more serious about eliminating the perception of tampering. I think we saw during the early negotiating period how it took a week for deals to get done. I don't think it'll take that long this time around, but because there's just a little bit of a longer deadline. But nothing happened at the starting gun for a lot of these deals. It took a while to get the Nick Claxton deal, to get the OG Anunoby deal done. And so I think we may see an atypical opening to free agency or kind of a new norm here for free agency where deals don't get done immediately and may take 15, 20 minutes before they get agreed to avoid this perception of tampering that we all know happens. I can't imagine Jeff Weltman doesn't already know who he's going to be able to sit down with and what they're going to be able to do once the starting gun goes off. I'm sure those meetings at the very least are already set. So they have an idea. They can pencil in, okay, this is what our plan is for free agency and for those and really just for setting up the roster. But the draft is done. So we've cleared this first hurdle of the offseason, this first kind of pressure point in the offseason. Malcolm Brogdon got traded. Denny Avdia got traded. Mikal Bridges got traded. But it wasn't really a draft with a lot. There were some big moves. I'm not going to pretend there wasn't. But it wasn't really a draft that seismically shaped the NBA. Everything still feels pretty steady, even as teams work really hard now to cut their payroll and get under the tax. That felt like that was half the battle in the second round on Thursday, was that everybody who was over the tax was trying to just sneak a little bit more under the tax. But now we know where the Magic stand. They currently have 11 players under contract, including Mo Wagner, who we suspect will have his team option decline, but will re-sign later in the summer, and excluding Joe Ingles, who we believe will have his team option declined. Assuming all that, maybe that's too much to assume, but assuming all that, this is how the Magic's depth chart looks. They have 4 starters in Jalen Suggs, Franz Wagner, Paolo Banchero, and Wendell Carter. We all anticipate that the Magic are looking for a guard, a starting guard more specifically, to play alongside Jalen Suggs, whether that's Klay Thompson, Paul George, D'Angelo Russell, Tyus Jones, or Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. The Magic have starting level options, and we expect them to grab one of them. Their bench, though, this is their 5, they're 2 deep on their bench. Cole Anthony, Anthony Black, Tristan Da Silva, Jonathan Isaac, and Mo Wagner. It's solid. A young group, but solid. So perhaps the Magic do need to make sure they add another guard. Where is Anthony Black's status? I believe the Magic need to add another kind of 3-point focused guard. Tristan Da Silva can either slot in as that backup 3 or be the emergency 4 when Jonathan Isaac is hurt. Jet Howard can play the 3 perhaps. To me, the Magic addressed some wing depth needs in Tristan Da Silva, and I think that's really big. That's really big for them. So now I do believe the Magic need to go after a starting guard, a starting level guard, and then probably a shooting focused wing to kind of fill in those minutes behind, fill in some minutes off the bench or create some competition off the bench. I would pitch Buddy Hield. I know he's not the greatest defender, had a really bad season, bad stint with the Sixers, but that dude is a shooter. He will make shots. Gary Trent Jr. is also a very popular name as well. Well, on that front, essentially when I know we've gone over the depth chart here on previous episodes, but essentially the Magic have 4 players going out. Chuma Okeke, Joe Ingles, Markelle Fultz, and Gary Harris. Those are the 4 players going out. Those are the 4 roster spots that have opened up. Goga Bitadze is half in, half out. I don't know what the Magic are ultimately going to do with Goga Bitadze, but essentially what I would suggest is Anthony Black is stepping in to fill Markelle Fultz's minutes. So I do expect Anthony Black to be a rotation player next season. Maybe the Magic want to add another kind of low-tier guard to be a backup just in case he doesn't work out. That's a reason to add another kind of wing guard as well, to add some depth there and to give you some cover in case Anthony Black doesn't work out for whatever reason. You expect that the Magic to add a shooter or to add a guard next to Jalen Suggs to replace Gary Harris's spot in the lineup. This will be the biggest place that the Magic can upgrade their lineup. This will be the biggest area where the Magic can go from a good team to a great team. Obviously, there are options. Klay Thompson is a very popular one among fans. I think that he is absolutely in play here for the Orlando Magic. Paul George, I think, is less in play now than maybe he was a couple weeks ago because I don't think the Magic want to give him the money he's looking for. We'll get to the financial stuff here in a little bit. But between Klay Thompson, D'Angelo Russell, Tyus Jones, or Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, if the Magic get one of those 4 players, whether they are the right choice or the wrong choice, they do improve the Magic's talent level. They do improve the Magic's roster. I would argue Tyus Jones is the safest of those players, but doesn't necessarily meaningfully advance them. Klay Thompson, I think, would transform the Magic's offense in a lot of ways, but there'd be some concerns there. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, I think, is a better version of Gary Harris, but doesn't do much more than Gary Harris. And D'Angelo Russell's just a wild card. He could either work wildly successfully or could really struggle within the Magic system and compromise them in other ways. I've done podcasts on all 4 of those players. You can go back in my archives and hear me talk more specifically about all 4 of those players. So that's Gary Harrison, Marco Fultz. Essentially, I think Tristan da Silva is either replacing Chuma Okeke's minutes or Joe Ingles' minutes. And you hope he's replacing Joe Ingles' minutes. But again, so the Magic will probably need another big-ish forward, another kind of 3-4 guy. Maybe Jet Howard steps into that role so you can go lower on the list to replace what you're losing maybe in Jet Howard. You got 2-way guys that can handle that. You can leave a roster spot open. And then finally, I do think the Magic need to make sure they get a high-quality third center. I would pitch Andre Drummond. Drummond might be looking for a more consistent role. If Goga Batadze is truly only going to be able to get the minimum on the market, the Magic should just pay him 2 years, $9 million, keep him in place. And now you have that as a little bit of a trade ballast as well. To me, this offseason is not necessarily about going out and finding the big player. It's not about going all in on one player. That's why I'm kind of out on Paul George. I don't think the Magic should spend 35, they got $50 million. I don't think they should spend $40 million on Paul George. I don't think they should spend necessarily $35 million on Klay Thompson. I think it'll cost more than 50. I think it'll cost you more than 30. But where Klay Thompson's number falls at is going to be on my borderline. Okay. Like the Magic need to add 3 players, 3 quality players, 3 rotation level players to this roster. That starting guard that I talked about, some good shooting wing depth, and then a third center to kind of round everything into form. You can fill the rest out with minimums and hopefully some 2-way guys as well. But that's where I stand on what the Magic's depth chart looks like. This is still a very young team. Hopefully not a frustratingly young team, but this is still a very young team. And I think it's time to, and again, I think this is part of why the Magic traded their draft pick. Where is that second round pick going to play? Tristan da Silva is either filling Joe Ingles' minutes or Chuma Okeke's minutes. Like I said, you hope he's filling Ingles' minutes, but he could be filling Chuma's minutes. And again, some of that depends on what they do in free agency. But if you're a second round pick, and I didn't even talk about Caleb Houston and how he's going to compete for playing time, there's just not enough space for a second round pick. And I don't think the Magic saw a project that they wanted to develop in Osceola. And I think that's ultimately why they traded the pick. The Magic have a really interesting depth chart. It's a really young depth chart but there are clearly areas that they need to improve. The guard spot, we absolutely talk about. I think the Magic are going to see if Cole Anthony can bounce back from last year. Certainly Wendell Carter, I think they want to see if he can be healthy and bounce back. I think they want to see what Jonathan Isaac looks like with a full summer to work on his game, to his first healthy summer since 2019. They want to see where that takes him, obviously, before he becomes a free agent, and he's extension eligible on July 7th as well. So the Magic have something to work with. They have places and areas where they can clearly upgrade and improve, and really that's what they're looking for. But this is an important summer to spend. The Magic can't just sit on their hands, bring everybody back, and try again. This is their summer to spend, and I'm going to talk about a little bit why it is coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by our friends over at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With more than 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. So let's talk about sort of the elephant in the room here. The biggest thing that seems to be impeding the Magic from really bustling people around is their willingness to spend and how they're willing to spend. It's it's a tricky spot. This is a really tricky spot because this is the spot where you could either doom yourself by being conservative. You can doom yourself by being aggressive. Chase and put your money into the wrong player and get stuck with him for a long-term contract, and you no longer have the nimbleness to improve your roster. You're stuck with a roster that isn't going anywhere without the trade assets to make things happen. Chicago. Don't spend on the right guys, and your young players get better, and maybe your team gets better, but now you don't have the ability to go out and make the move to get you over the top. I would argue this summer is as important as any other for the Magic to spend. Not spend recklessly, but to spend. Spend on a player that will make this team better, even if it's just on the surface, even if it doesn't check all the boxes. It's important to spend because the Magic don't have trade capital. That's the bottom line. Every trade we've talked about has run into a brick wall. And I talked about this in the Locked On mock draft exercise that we did as a Locked On group. Every deal I ran into one brick wall. Either A, I didn't feel like the Magic had the depth to give up someone like a Wendell Carter without going after someone else or getting some insurance back. Couldn't swing a lot of deals because I could not trust that I'm going to get Isaiah Hartenstein in the summer and trade Wendell Carter. Being able to do that, getting that green light would change a lot for this Magic team. Cole Anthony simply did not have much trade value on the market because he's coming off a bad year. And if I'm not willing to trade Jonathan Isaac, which I'm not, maybe the Magic are, but I'm not, and I'm not willing to trade Jalen Suggs, the list of assets in my control that I can use to make my team better, to get an Anthony Simons, to get a Malcolm Brogdon perhaps, to get a Tyler Hero as I explored, to get a Cam Johnson or Mikal Bridges as the case was before the draft. My ability to get any of those players was hamstrung. The way to fix that is this summer to spend a little bit of money, to get some big salaries on your plates. Say what you want about D'Angelo Russell, but D'Angelo Russell has been successful at one thing: being able to be turned into valuable players. The Golden State Warriors turned D'Angelo Russell into Andrew Wiggins, and Andrew Wiggins, for all his flaws, helped Golden State win a championship. D'Angelo Russell was turned from Minnesota to Utah, I believe, from Mike Conley. I believe that was a 3-team deal that sent Mike Conley to Minnesota, and that's an incredibly important piece. The Magic need a $20+ million guy that they are willing to trade. I'm not saying go after D'Angelo Russell, and that's not the reason you do it. But that's what the Magic need. I will say this: I think the Magic are being smart, at least portraying themselves as cautious, holding that line. Klay Thompson on a 2-year, $70 million deal is a lot, but it gives you the nimbleness to make moves, to kind of get out of that contract, to bring him back, bring him back if you want, but trade him if you need to. Gives you some salary heft to move around. Like trying to get to Zach LaVine's number. I know the Magic can absorb more salary than they can send out at this point, but getting to something comfortable with Zach LaVine's $40 million where you still have cap room to do what you need to do, that's really hard without salaries that the Magic can trade to match. And so the Magic have to spend because this summer is about making the team better. Don't get me wrong. Orlando needs to make their team better, but this summer is about setting up the chessboard. We're playing chess, not checkers here. And so it's nice to have all the pieces arranged and say, oh, I can move here, here, here. No. This is about thinking 2-3 moves ahead. Think about we are at this stage of getting to the first round, of competing in the first round, of having a chance to win a series in the first round. We're trying to get to the second round and contending for the conference finals. How do we position ourselves to make the move that will help us get to the finals? That's the stage of development the Magic are at right now. And so in order to get there, in order to have the pieces, to have the chessboard set up just the way you like, you got to spend some money. And this is a summer where the Magic have to spend some money. Obviously, they have to spend some money to hit the 90% salary floor, payroll floor. They can't just sit on their hands. They're not going to pay $30 million combined for Gary Harris and Markelle Fultz. If they do that, they deserve to be hurt. They deserve to be criticized for it. Markelle Fultz and Gary Harris are fine players. They're good people. They're great in this locker room. I'm sure the Magic would love to have them back. But the Magic need better players to get where they want to go. They need to upgrade the talent on the roster. And they need to upgrade it meaningfully. There are very clear weaknesses that could keep this team from saving their spot. Forget about trying to win home court advantage. They gotta do that, but they also got to maintain their spot in the pecking order. And ultimately, the success of this team is going to depend on Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner. If Paolo Banchero continues his ascent to superstardom and Franz Wagner becomes an all-star level player, the Magic will be a better team. So now they just have to add the right players and pieces to accentuate and add to them. And that's going to cost you a little bit. And you have to be willing to spend to get there. This is an important summer. It's not about winning headlines. It's not about doing the big move. But it is about spending. It is about finding skills and attributes that you value that enhance and improve this team. But it's about setting the table up for when you don't have this much cap room. When you don't have the ability to go out and sign whoever you want. Be smart about who you sign and the contracts you sign, and the Magic are seemingly going for these short-term deals so that they can better assess what their books will look like in 2 years. But they need to spend. They need to be able to position themselves to make the kind of deal that New York made, where they're willing to commit future assets that they're not willing to commit right now. The Magic aren't willing to trade their first-round picks. They got a lot of them. They're not willing to trade them. By the time we hit next summer, the Magic need to be willing to say, hey, come take this guy. Come take Cole Anthony in a first-round pick. Cole Anthony coming off a good season. Take him in a first-round pick to upgrade our roster. That's where the Magic are headed. And they need some veterans to get there, to be perfectly honest. It is about this year, but it's about so much more. And so that makes this summer an incredibly important one to set up the next stage for the Orlando Magic. The draft is done. We're done talking about the young guys. We're done talking about the young players. It's time to add the veterans that will make this team better. The veterans that will elevate this team in the playoffs and eventually help them get the players, the role players, the stars that will put them over the top and lift that big gold trophy at the end of the season. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. Of course, find me on Twitter at PhilipRR_OMD. Subscribe to the podcast and Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Himalaya, Google Play, Spotify, Odyssey, and all of them on podcasts to your podcast-enabled listening device. Be sure to check us out on YouTube. Search for Locked On Magic. If you have not done so already, please subscribe there as well. For the latest on the Orlando Magic, be sure to check out OrlandoMagicDaily.com. You can follow us there on Twitter at OMagicDaily. And for even more Orlando Magic content, including immediate updates from Tristan da Silva's introductory press conference, you can find that at my Patreon page, the Orlando Magic Hub, at patreon.com/Orlando Magic Hub. And as always, thank you for your support. Now that you're done listening to me, be sure to check out the Locked On Sports Day 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube and now available on Amazon Fire TV in the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Day is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Day now available on the free Fire TV channels app. Don't forget, this will be our last episode. I'm not going to do an episode after the introductory press conference on Friday, so check Orlando Magic Daily as well as the Orlando Magic Hub for immediate reaction to that. We will talk about Tristan da Silva more next week. We'll have the host of Locked On Buffs on in between free agency talk. But I will be back Sunday evening, 5:45 p.m. on the Locked On Magic YouTube page. We're going to do a live show covering free agency, reacting immediately to what happens in free agency. We're going to get to that on tomorrow. We're going to get to that on Sunday at 5:45 p.m. Eastern time. I'll send out links to my social channels as well in case you forget, but put it on your calendars. Bring your questions. We're going to talk Magic and see what they do in this super important summer. But that's going to do it for me today. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic for Orlando Magic Daily and Locked On Magic. This has been Philip Rossman-Reich. We'll see you all again next time for another episode of Locked On Magic.